I'm Yolanda over there. Over there is Angela. Stalk up. And this
We're
is yet
here.
again another week of Leading Women Weekly presented by DryerBuzz, asking you guys to check in, stop what you're doing, talk about how you are. I am in my pajamas. I actually have a blanket right here because I've had a heck of a week. And I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking about, wardrobe and actually this is brand spanking new. It's so funny because Angela, first of all, let me tell you the retail therapy around here, not no fault to my own. Retail therapy in this house has been insane. The minute I end this broadcast, I have got to break down so many boxes. I could barely get down the hallway. I've got to break down boxes. Yesterday, I went to visit my daughter, and packages arriving. Petty Betty has. I got 3 pair of new shoes. I haven't been anywhere. Why do I have? Well, two of which are athletic, and notice
Well,
I'm gonna say athletic. Um, and that's it. In pajamas, and so I got a brand new pair of pajamas. I'm like, I'm wearing my pajamas.
they
So
look
here we go.
good. What does it say? Amazing what?
It says a lot. It says amazing, awesome, beautiful, in something I don't know. I posted it, but then I
I'll have
was
to go
like, you
look.
know what? I'm gonna have to put this on. I'm gonna put it
I
on
love
because
it.
I'm the kind of person it would have stayed in the packaging forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I am, and I pretty much kind of started the year off like this. I'm like, I'm not saving anything else.
Yep.
You know how you do that. You're like,
Yep.
oh, I'll save this for that. Listen,
Mm-hmm.
2020 has proven use it or lose it.
Yep.
Um, and before I throw to you in your week, you know what my week is. Friday, Thursday, I had a foot injury. Woke up Friday morning and absolutely could not walk. Ended up in the emergency room. Left the emergency room with something called plantar fasciitis spur.
Mm.
Lots of pain meds, and steroids. Came home on that, and they said literally in 3 to 6 days you won't even know what this was. But there's something to having that temporary setback,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to respond to that. It was like your whole life flashed before your eyes. It's like, well, wait,
Mm-hmm.
things are kind of, even though we're in a pandemic, things are kind of going good. Wait, life is going to change again, you know. But it comes from, the last 2 years I've been broadcasting here in this kitchen. I know everybody's now zooming and all that kind of stuff, but this has been my life for the past 2 years. Long videos, live streaming here in the kitchen, standing on my feet, and
Mm-hmm.
when I went to the doctor, they try to figure out immediately, like, okay, what caused this?
Right.
And I thought it was the TikTok challenge that I decided to try last week, which was running in place to Busta Rhymes, trying to last throughout this 60-minute TikTok. Well, apparently that aggravated it,
Yeah.
but of course, also taking the dog on our walks. We were trying something new that aggravated it, and then we
Mm-hmm.
had just a lot of stuff, and then just realizing going from a sedentary lifestyle to standing on my feet all day. That was it. That just brought it all on, and so going from the thought that I might have to have some surgery or I might have to
Mm-hmm.
wear a boot.
Mm-hmm.
All of that all at one time was a bit much. It was a
Mm-hmm.
bit much. So all I could cope with today was to put on my PJs and make it through the episode today. And how was your week, ma'am?
Well, mine did not manifest in the physical as yours has shown up in your body. The trauma of our time has shown up in your body. Mine just showed up in my spirit. I thought it was a very difficult week, but I want to
Mm-hmm.
back up and say congratulations to you for saying I'm gonna wear my pajamas. I'm gonna take it easy. I'm gonna sit here in my pajamas because one of the things when Yolanda, so Yolanda, I just got to tell my side of the story. So I see Yolanda make a statement about like on Twitter, and she's like, yeah, that time when you have to show the doc, the TikTok challenge that brought you in. And I thought it was a joke, right? I was like, whatever. And then I get a message that says I'm in the ER with my foot. And I was like, what? And so, and I get a phone, I go like, what's happening? And I can hear Yolanda talking through the mask. And I'm like, all right, let me not make you talk in the emergency room. And so thankfully, I mean, I've had issues with plantar fasciitis, and not to the degree that you did, but from running. And it is one of those things that it's a little slow, dull ache, and you deal with it, and then it just will get to where it just knocks you out. But but one of the things that I said to you was, I'm always looking at is there a psychic message? Is there a message in what you're getting? And this is, comes out of this issue of how does trauma show up in our body? And I'm like, is there something you can't stand? Do you need to sit with something? So I'm glad that you're telling me that you got comfy shoes and PJs, right? And that you can just sit a little bit, because I think some of us are to that where we just need to take a breath and sit, right? Because when we're dealing with and he's like, well, gosh, we've been sitting in the quarantine. I'm not talking about sitting and doing nothing. I'm talking sitting in your spirit, right? Because one of the things that when you look at how trauma manifests in the body, right? It's, we talk about the fight or flight response in stress and anxiety. And there's also the freeze response, right? So a lot of us have had to freeze at home. We're just had to be stuck, right? And all our systems, everything that we're doing just stopped, right? But simultaneously, you're in your house just working. You're like, okay, great, I'm here. I'm going to do videos. I'm going to make soap. I'm going to do whatever, right? I know for me, my household obligations increase because I now, have 100% responsible for the care of a disabled person when I used to have help. There are people who, again, have kids at home all day. They're having to cook all their meals, things that we weren't doing. And so we're in this freeze response, but we're in constant motion because we're trying to figure out how to make things happen. And to your point, we may be doing things that we didn't used to do. I just think about all the people who are cooking. If you have never stood in front of a stove, right, and cooked and prepared and cooked and cleaned, the first thing in the pandemic people said was, oh my God, how long does it take? It's so hard to make all this food, right? Because you're just used to, we're used to picking it up. Well, you do kitchen videos, then you're doing the soap. And so it's like, you end up on your feet a lot. I know I started to have some leg problems from being on my feet so much. So, what is the response? You may not be able to literally just stop what you're doing, but if you can find a way to sit in your spirit and to have peace in your spirit and find something that's comforting to you. So this is why I love the idea of the pajamas. When you told me that PJs were coming into your household in large numbers, I thought, I'm going to go buy myself some new loungewear. Right? I'm going to buy myself some stuff for being in the house that is for laying around. And so a long story to say, I had what happened to your foot happened in my soul, right? I was just like this last week, particularly behind the Republican National Convention, the shooting in Kenosha, the whole Kenosha deal, part 1 and part 2, and then what happened in Portland. And I really, by Monday, I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to continue. And I know a lot of people feel that. And so this is a point where we're in it now. I mean, November isn't even the end of a thing, right? We're going to vote. Let's say, God bless, please let us get rid of Trump. He'd still be president until January, right?
Exactly. That's what we were talking about last time.
And these issues that have been stirred up are still going to be there, no matter who the president is. And so, there are things that have been, and I'm talking about these gun-toting white supremacist idiots have now been emboldened. And I don't know that they're going back in their caves, right? So, I mean, we're going to be dealing with these things. So, what is it? And this is the question I ask myself, right? Is where can I get some comfort? What will bring me comfort?
Right.
And that's not comfort food, right? And that's okay. Comfort food is fine. But, I've had plenty of comfort food, right? And I don't deny myself comfort food, but I mean, what more, right? And when you're talking about, cozy PJs and whatever, I was like, yeah, that's something that you can do in your home to have comfort, right? And then of course losing Chadwick Boseman, my God, and that was, I think that
Oh
was
yeah, we
like
have to talk about that.
we will, and we'll talk about that more.
Yeah.
This sort of, if you've been dealing with any kind of grief, it pulls
Mm-hmm.
up all your grief. Yeah,
Because we can figure out why that hit the way it
yes,
did. Why wasn't this just simply, another celebrity death?
right.
Simply because we've experienced so much loss. 2020 has been grieving day in and day out, which is why when I got up today, I was like, oh, I got to figure out a wardrobe. I got to figure out something to put on. I had this package of pajamas there. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put on these PJs. Yeah. And it was so funny because I was running around, doing the things that I do to get ready for the show. And the dog is looking at me like, I kept coming around the corner. He has this thing. He can gauge where I am in my day. He watches me come around the corner. And so like, he knows there's a couple things I put on when we go for our walk. Oh, she's got that on. It's my time.
Right.
So he saw me take my shower. It was so funny. I came out of the bathroom and I had on the pajamas. He was like,
he's like, I'm
like, wait, what's going on here?
It doesn't look right.
Right. And
I'm impressed with how smart this dog is.
Because he knows the routine. So he saw me bringing the laptop into the kitchen and I'm setting up. And he's still looking like, okay. Now, mind you, I've also been gone for 24 hours because I stayed at my daughter's. And so when I came home yesterday, he was so excited I was home. And, and trying to figure out the routine. And you were talking about people who are having to cook. So when we came home Friday from the hospital, I had to sit with my foot up. And Petty Betty ended up having, she got off early. I don't know if she got off early or I think came home, but she had to cook dinner. And she had to do all the things for the weekend, through the weekend of what I would normally do, because she kept trying to get me to sit down. By the third day, she was not saying, Mom, sit down and be still, because like Friday, she didn't
that was over.
Anything. She was cooking it clear. I wish you could have seen my kid. Look, it's still not even up to par, which is why I'm like, give you just this shot. I'd normally go for a wider shot. By Saturday, I think she was like,
are you feeling better?
I came into the kitchen because I started working on, because when this happened, I was working on the studio. I'm doing a studio across the hall here. But I came into the kitchen, the breakfast dishes were still here, the lunch dishes, dinner dishes. Betty was like, she was like, go right ahead, because it was killing me just trying to watch her manage all this stuff. And she said, yeah, this is not what I do. This is your thing. You can do it. So she stopped telling me to sit down because she was ready for me to get back.
She was like, you can get up now.
Yeah, but luckily, I had some great pain meds and they put me right on the steroid. And, anytime, any type of health issue, and there's a headline right now where they're talking about, hey, that steroids may be the thing to help people. And I don't know why they didn't go to that first, but they're saying now that steroids may be the thing to help people through COVID. But anybody that has dealt with any kind of lung issues and asthma issues, the first thing you ask for, or you try to get, depending on the health system you're dealing with, you try to go ahead and get that steroid. And so luckily, just imagine if I didn't come home with a steroid, I'd probably be back in the doctor's office right now, as opposed to just going ahead and getting through this thing. So, it just comes down to, just do my motto is do it sooner, do it right, and just do it sooner and sooner. And so that we don't end up with this, but watching everybody process this, and then for you and I to come on Wednesday and try to make everything that we just saw, and you guys that are watching, we try to come on and process it as gender specific as we can, and specifically talking to women and how we have to navigate these things, because it is what it is. We have to do it, as they used to say, we have to do it the same way, just backwards and in heels. Okay. Now, everybody has had a horrible pandemic. Imagine women doing it backwards and in heels, right? Everybody has suffered much loss and much grief doing it backwards and in heels. I am watching the situation with Chadwick Boseman, and I think we said on the last time we were together. I had a friend who just lost her
Mm-hmm.
husband
Mm-hmm.
and didn't get a chance to even offer any real support in her grieving.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean we are connected through collaborations. It's not like one of my dearest friends, but
Mm-hmm.
yet Facebook, because the
Mm-hmm.
grieving has been part of my algorithms. You see more of
Right.
that. You see,
Right.
like, it's showing us everybody that's hurting now, because that's something that you and I talk about on here. So our
Yes.
timelines are hitting a little
Yes.
different. People are seeing our content because it's lining up. So what do you do when there's so much of it? You have a pajama day. You take it slow.
Absolutely. And what we're missing in all of this, and this is where I think Chadwick Boseman's passing is really significant, right? Is that
Mm-hmm.
we have not culturally, we have not as a country, we have not as a world come
Mm-hmm.
together to mourn, right? And to understand that memorializing the dead is not just
Mm-hmm.
something that we do because it's a ritual or a tradition or whatever. There's a therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about therapy today, honey. I'm just like up in. I'm like, I got to
Yeah.
get my mind right.
Yeah.
I'm like, but there's a therapeutic reason for it. Cultures have developed. Our human beings have developed these rituals. I mean, like when they dig up Neanderthal man, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Neanderthals, they have found evidence that they had ritual around the death of members of their community. We need that as
Mm-hmm.
individuals, but we need it as a community. Otherwise, we're not right. It messes us up, right? It slows down the processing of grief. And we're already dealing with massive quantities of grief, right? So
Mm-hmm.
think about
Mm-hmm.
what we do for 9/11, right? And
I was
every
gonna say
year,
that. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we have, I mean, this incredible, we spent years building that, building the monument in New York, but there's also an annual celebration in the field in
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania where the plane crashed. There's an annual commemoration at the Pentagon, and the reading of the names, and the family is there for the reading of the names, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
do this every year and have a moment of silence. And if you want to participate, you can. If you don't want to, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to. But I always do, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I remember it very clearly. And so it's a chance for us to collectively take what's in us and let it out, right? And so to me, this if since we've not had anything, we've had more people. I mean, good Lord, we've almost had 200,000 people. Not to minimize the 3,000 whatever that died at 9/11,
9/11.
but
And
we're having.
actually, more than that, when you think about it, because I remember the day I was blogging the story when the fatality from the war surpassed the number of 9/11. And not only that, to kind of find out it was somebody from my neighborhood that took
Mm-hmm,
that number over,
yeah,
and it was like, whoa. So,
yeah. I mean,
just
some
in
states.
large numbers of grief,
Yeah,
we will have to have a national day of more. Think about how many people have not had a memorial service that has said, "Hey, we'll put it off until
yeah,
we'll go ahead
yeah.
and do
Mm-hmm.
some part of the ritual, but we won't do." And so they're waiting to come
Right.
back to that.
Yeah.
That's got to be too much.
That is. And so when you have this, there's this sort of, there's this. I don't know that it's anybody's theory, but it's just this sort of observation of people that
Mm-hmm.
when a well-known, well-loved celebrity dies, it
Mm-hmm.
gives people, fans and communities, a chance to grieve together, right? And
Collectively,
so,
yeah.
and you put everything else aside and you talk about your sadness, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
talk about
Mm-hmm.
loss, and it will make you then think about other losses and other sadnesses in your life. And so
Is that
Chadwick
the part
Boseman.
that we don't deal with? The
Oh,
fact that it
absolutely.
brought up other?
Absolutely. This is,
Yeah.
when you are bawling your eyes out over Chadwick Boseman, uh, if you don't know him,
Mm-hmm.
it's touching something greater,
Something else.
and
Mm.
starting with what he represented and the roles that he played. So
Mm-hmm.
for the Black community, what he meant in as an actor and these roles. I mean, I think about Black Panther. I'm like, Black Panther died the week of Trump's fascist rally at the White House. That is a symbol of so much that's happening in this country that, that hit
Oh,
a
the
lot of people.
hero.
But of course, Chadwick Boseman is not Black Panther. He's a human being, right? And so it's that human loss. It's that thought of him keeping that private. And if you've been through cancer, right? Like, everybody I know who lost someone to cancer had conversations in the last couple of days. I've ended up talking to somebody like, oh my God, can you believe? And then it's like, I remember when my mom had cancer. I got a friend, I remember when my dad had cancer, right? And in fact, he's like, and my stepdad had cancer. And my stepmom had cancer. And it's like, then suddenly you're talking about all the people who have cancer, right? And so, but it's important. It's important that we have these conversations and that we share this grief and that we witness each other's grief. See, part of this too is we need to witness our grief. And so
that's the key right there. And and it's funny because that's what I wanted us to talk about today is being a witness. Are we witnessing enough? And sometimes, it's the bystander. It's that bystander, like you see it going on, but you're not intervening. You're not witnessing. You're not letting people know that you've experienced it or that I think is the devastation that happens and why the grief is so deep, because people do feel like they are alone. Imagine, and one of the things I was thinking about is imagine somebody also going through this and collectively seeing the world pause. Because the one thing you want the world to stop, right? And it doesn't stop. But if you look at the fact that we took 2 to 3 days collectively to process what was happening to this actor, when somebody was probably sitting there going through it and hadn't heard a phone call or a message from people right there in the, again, because that whole privately thing, and so if people haven't reached out, were you doing it privately? Could people witness? Could a bystander have intervened? And that's why a lot of people, when I talk about living in public, and it's like, it's not that you have to tell everybody all of your business, but it helps. And one of the reasons that I started talking about caregiving is because I did deal with it privately at first, right? And I was having a bad moment, and I went to say, I called out to my dad, and he was like, wait, you're doing what? Your Instagram is this. And I'm like, wait, what? And not only that, I had a very dear friend, because I didn't talk about one of the facilities that I had difficulty with. She lost her mom in that same facility, and I got to her too late. So, I kind of feel like I have to deal with that. So that's why for me, it's about saying something out when they're saying something about what we're going through, even just something simple. You and I were talking about watching the PBS special, Unladylike,
Right.
And I'm looking at this, and I know you love Nicole Hannah Jones.
Yeah.
And she was narrating. She was not narrating, but she was part of the one of the stories. Here we had an African American woman, and I hate using the word African American. We're talking about history, but a Black female who owned a newspaper ended up getting this newspaper from her boss. He on his deathbed willed this newspaper to her, to Charlotta Bass. It ended up being Charlotta Bass, but I forget what her whole name was. Even in that story, it's like, how did we get this far? A story that's so relative to my life, and not know it. Did you just hear the whole conversation? How long have I been looking to figure out Angela, what am I doing? Why is it so important that I tell these stories? Why is it so important that I launch this blog and try to build this publication? And at the same time saying, when we were doing this in 2000, saying that, hey, nobody's ever done this before, but here's somebody that did it at the turn of the century. Not only that, ran for vice president.
Yes. Yes. No, I thought.
Go ahead.
No, I thought about you as I was watching it. I'm like, fast forward, right? They say fast forward to the year 2000. Yolanda's doing the same thing, right? And it's like how we're still, because we are not witnessing we are not witnessing our history. We talk about doomed to repeat it. We're forced to repeat it, right?
Exactly.
Because nobody knows it was done. And let me just say this. One of the things, I watched that, and I'm so happy. One of the things I thought was so happy Nicole Hannah-Jones is working with Oprah. Oprah has optioned this. They're going to develop stories because I'm like, there needs to be a Charlotta Bass movie. This would be fantastic. This woman, the Klan came. First of all, who knew there was the Klan in Southern California?
But did I not give you that same story about Memorial Drive?
Yes. Yes. And yes. Yeah. I was like, Yolanda, man, you can play this role. It's like,
with the Klan, I'm telling, girl.
And she pulls a pistol on him and it's like, you get the hell out of here. And they ran away. I was like, God, I want this movie. So I was like, okay, this is now in the Oprah sphere. There will be a movie. This should be a movie.
But think about this. Now, I have gone all my life with that story of being told that as a young girl, I would have to grab a gun in case these men tried to harm us.
Right.
Imagine if in my mind then, because I'm thinking, wait, this is something that Black women have to do.
Yeah.
This is what little Black girls have to do. Because I was a little Black girl.
Yeah.
This is what we have to do. But here you had us, but to tell me how empowering would it have been if I knew that this is what little Black girls have to do because they are brilliant.
Yes.
Right? Everything is said, hey, this is what little Black girls got to do for every other reason. But simply because this Black woman owned a newspaper. Okay. And we were watching Lovecraft Country. Right. Okay. And I tweeted the other day, I said, isn't it interesting that every time when they tried to level these allegations, they always said they were doing it to you because you were smart. You're too smart for your own good. You're getting too smart. And I'm like, why is it always about being smart? And that's something that Black people, that women, everybody other than white men have to account for. Being smart, being brilliant, using your knowledge, using your power comes to that. Imagine growing up all this time trying to figure out what was it about that, and then seeing that scene of her having to pull that gun. It's like, okay, that's just something Black women have
That's
to
just
do.
What you do.
You have to do.
And it would have been far less terrifying, even though it should be terrifying, because you're like, and look, and they ran away. And I think what's fascinating in that story is they left and it worked. And I'm like you say, how empowering would that have been if you said, okay, if I have to do it, they'll run away, right? Even if they didn't, it would make you feel less afraid. And I mean, and what she went through, oh my God. But what really made me mad,
or if they hadn't suppressed her story this long, that they rolled up on her like that. If we did every day suppress the what is it, the bystanders, okay, we didn't suppress what was really going on, and not just make up these stories about angry Black women. Black women are not just angry. It's like, how many was that? 8 men rolled up on her. 8 men. Where was that? So 8 men rolled up on this woman Black woman who owned a newspaper. She had to defend herself. And if we talked about that, just say it, because it is a thing. Maybe today we wouldn't have to still be out here trying to figure out how to deal with what's going on today. You know?
But the thing that made me the maddest about this, because I was mad. I'm like, why did I not hear this? Right? Why have I not heard this story? And literally, when Kamala Harris is getting nominated, first Black vice presidential candidate, wrong. But Charlotta Bass was on the progressive ticket. Now, it wasn't nationwide, but she was on the ticket in California with the Progressive Party in 1952. 1952, not 1922.
And that was at the end of her span of all these things that she did.
She was now, she was an older woman when she died in 69. But the point is, 1952 was not that long ago, right? I mean, come on. So what are we looking at? 60...
a decade before us.
Yeah,
we were born.
So that would have that.
She had already owned the newspaper for
60
2 to 3 decades
years ago. That's, I mean, again, this is the modern age, right? 1952, there's television, right? 1952, there, you look at these pictures, there's a recording of her. There's a recording of her accepting the nomination.
Those are her words.
Accepting the nomination as the first I think she said Negro woman vice presidential candidate, and I'm like, why? This
Has
shouldn't
that
be
not
hidden.
played every? Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
isn't this played every year?
Yeah.
During when we commemorate women's right to vote, when we Black History Month, Women's History Month, there's plenty of times to play that.
You just hold on. You just took the whole lid off. You just took the whole lid off right there, because now, as we commemorated, what was it last week, the women's right to vote, and we talk about
Women's
the whole
Equality Day,
suffrage, Women's Equality Day, the whole suffrage movement. Why isn't her story a leading part of in this movement? When we talk about the women's right to vote, I mean, we Michelle Obama going into the White House as the first Black first lady. Didn't get to talk. We barely got a chance to talk about Sojourner.
Yeah.
Remember when they first got into the White House and Michelle Obama unveiled the statue of Sojourner, and there was all the vitriol from that, and then they again, we got to suppress what Michelle Obama does, and it's like, but again, if we had been able to witness, we were not allowed to witness these other things, and we have a calendar full of, it's a national day of this and a remembrance of that, every day. But here in this 12-minute clip that Angela and I watched, and for you guys trying to figure out what we're talking about, we decided to watch this succession of videos as opposed to choosing the next book. And Angela and I, it's on PBS. It's called Unladylike 2020. And that's either a hashtag or a search term, depending on whatever platform you're on. I found it difficult to find it on the television app, so I was watching it on my phone. But if you go to your PBS website, your PBS station and so forth, it's a series. It's part of American Masters, I believe.
Yes,
and it's called Unladylike, and it was like, 20 or 30 or so of these women?
I believe they have 26. They said they have 26 digital shorts. So there's like an hour-long program, but I would, skip that. Go look down, just scroll down below, and it'll say extras, right?
This whole episode today is simply about the 12 minutes on one woman.
Right.
And it just has literally freed us.
And so if you start scrolling through that, right, there's this, there's like a linear scroll, you will see all the women that they have featured in the full hour. So you can then go and look at each one. So like I say, we could talk for hours off just one 12-minute portion.
Yeah.
But we say, why was this woman? So she was an outstanding journalist, right? So think about Hannah Nicole Jones, and she started the association named after Ida B. Wells, who was of course a famous Black journalist.
My absolute model.
Your model.
For whom I say I am a blogger because of
and so so she started an organization to train Black journalists in investigative techniques, so that she said, because basically papers are, the journalism is like, well, we'd like to hire Black people but we just, blah, blah. Bullshit,
and then they go, well, where are they? We can't find any.
We're going to train them. But, but this is the whole point. Is like, there's so many movements that should be claiming Charlotta Bass, right? So the women's movement, journalism, independent journalism, there's just women in politics, all these groups. They say the suffrage movement, right to vote. But as with all these things, it's the erasure of black women and erasure of Black women's voices in these roles. And you start looking at these stories and Unladylike, and it's a diversity. It's every race and background.
I'm trying to bring it up so I can play a clip.
Good.
And it's so their website is like,
but particularly of course the contribution of Black women. But I was listening to now, anybody who's been watching us regularly, I am like deeply into the therapist Resmaa Menakem, and I'm like, if he starts a church, I'll probably join. So I'm loving Resmaa Menakem. And I was looking at a little video he did today about this, about what he calls racial caping. and this idea of black. So talking about what happened when Botham Jean, and the verdict, and the bailiff and came out and stroked the girl's hair, and the judge gave her a Bible, and the family and everybody was so up in arms about that. He said, you have to understand
narrative.
that this forgiveness narrative has been a coping mechanism and a protective mechanism for Black people since they came here, right? Because said when white people get upset, people get hurt, right? People die. And so that it can be an automatic response. And when you look at the ages of the people that were involved in that as well, so it can be an automatic response as a protective mechanism. And so to understand where that came from, and I'm like, so it's like there's almost this idea that this Black woman is so dangerous, Charlotta Bass, the protective mechanism is going to be to not talk to her. This is not for Black people, but white people, right? Oh, and it's like, but it's time to let that go, right? This is so this erasure and this and allowing erasure in the name of, well, we don't want to ruffle feathers, we don't want to cause problems, or in the case again of saying we don't want to get the white people riled up, because you see what happens when you get 17-year-olds with AR-15s shooting up places, right? But that's not
without consequence.
It's not, no. And so it's so to say, understand where that came from, but it's not. It's time. It's well past time. And again, to witness what's happening now, to witness what came before. So do you have the clip?
I think I do. I'm trying to get to. I'll see where we are.
Protesting President Truman's Cold War policies. Bass ran for Congress in 1950 on the Progressive Party ticket. She lost, but didn't stop there.
In 1952, she actually ran for the office of the Vice Presidency of the United States with Vincent Hallinan on the Progressive Party ticket. There wasn't a chance in hell that they were going to win, much less get a lot of votes. But she took every opportunity she could to have her voice heard and to bring the kind of social justice that she thought was needed.
It is with great pride that I come before the American people at this moment. For the first time in the history of our nation, a political party has nominated a Negro woman for the second highest office in the land.
Bass was labeled a radical. The federal government investigated her as a potential communist. The post office tried to revoke her postage permit for the California Eagle. She sold the paper in 1951 and it continued publication until 1964.
I am very confident that within my lifetime, I will see first-class citizenship achieved for all my people, true democracy for all Americans.
She's really been
good stuff, right? So that is the feature episode today. You guys go to pbs.org. You'll be able to choose the PBS station for your city. It's called Unladylike 2020 Unsung Women Who Changed America. And I like that you said use the word erasure, because here we've got unsung women who changed America. And then you've got all of this divisiveness. You've got all of this erasure, all of this vitriol and trying to change it back. Imagine that's where we were for a whole century. Because I mean, you think about her age. She started with a newspaper in her 20s. She ran for vice president. How old was she when she did that? That was in the 50s.
It was 52. Was when
but
she
again,
ran.
And then think about it. We have the whole MLK era in the 60s. So she is before all of that. You know,
she's the predecessor to that.
I saw some of the headlines talk about the Pullman Porters. So she's ahead of Ralph Bunche, who actually was it Ralph? No, Philip Randolph. Philip Randolph
right.
Was before Dr. King and Medgar Evers and then Dr. King and so forth. So, like I said, the predecessor to all of that, yet we still keep asking, where are women in the civil rights movement? They were before the civil rights movement, and now we can truly say that they were. And it's not that we even needed to say who came first, the chicken or the egg, the man or the woman. It's the fact that we don't get to witness what women have done. We have been deprived as women because of where men want to be in their position and their status and so forth, that they've completely, I don't know who per se, but completely have just written out, and somebody's had to go and to dig these things back up, because generation upon generation of generation of women, we get to a point wondering what our lives are supposed to be. Here I am on a Wednesday in 2020 in my pajamas because I can't figure out what's going on, when very simply a 12-minute video could have empowered me 12 years ago.
Right. Right.
Well, that's crazy.
And that is the cost of this, right? So it's not just the individual insult to Charlotta Bass, which this is, right? But so many who could benefit from her story, right? So many who would be uplifted and informed and motivated, and would keep us from just having to keep going over the same ground over and over again. And it makes me think about Isabel Wilkerson in Caste, talking about how basically racial profiling in the caste system is an absolute waste of time and energy. The resources and time of people, of talented people, and like you say, in this case, because you're smart, because Black women are brilliant, that they are going to make, then society is going to make these women work 5 times as hard and erase your story. That's ridiculous, and it cost everybody. And that's the message that white people have to get anyway, is that you're not doing yourself any kind of service when you oppress anybody. But that just from a selfish point of view, the resources and talents that our culture is deprived of. But this was again, I watched that, and I said, I'm going to watch this about 5 times, I think, the Charlotta Bass. And I'm like, I got to see, has anybody written?
Because it was so much.
Where's that?
It was so much in just those 12 minutes. It covers such a time span of her life, and also mentioned other women. If you think about it, if you look around, just the photo alone. How dare we look at one of those photos there where it was her and she was flanked by women. Where are their stories?
And just when they're showing the paper was called the California Eagle, when they're showing flashes of the newspapers and just the headlines of the day. And I'm like, every headline they showed is its own movie, right? I mean, it's its own story. And
something to witness.
It's something to witness. And so on this note of witness, right, I want to encourage people to read. It's the very moving essay written by the writer Jessamine Ward. She's from Mississippi. She's written Sing Unburied Sing. She's won the Pulitzer Prize. She's written a memoir about the death of her brother. And she's just lyrical in her writing. She is going to end up being, hopefully, will be recognized as one of the great American writers of the 21st century. Gorgeous. But she's written in Vanity Fair this month an essay called I pulled it up so I could say it, On Witness and Respair. So it's RESPAIR. So it is about, so On Witness and Respair, a personal tragedy followed by pandemic. And it is what I would call an elegy, right? It is basically a prose poem about loss and grief. And her husband died in January of what sounds to me like COVID, and it just wasn't recognized at 33. She's young, right? He's young family. And then she brings that whole experience through the pandemic, Black Lives Matter, and it ends on a beautiful note. And I thought this is also part of our collective mourning, is we need the songs and stories of mourning, right? And this is why you go to a funeral, and if you are of a Christian background. Even if you don't go to church, there's certain hymns that play, and you're just going to cry your eyes out, but it makes you feel better. It's catharsis, right? And I'm certain all backgrounds have this, that there's a ritual, there's something, and it makes you weep, but then you feel better, right? That's catharsis. This is a very cathartic piece. And but it's about being a witness. And throughout she keeps saying, I see you, I hear you, right? And so this is, I feel like when I was like, this is what as human beings we need. One of our greatest, deepest needs, which is how we know that we're loved. How do we know that we're loved?
How do you know?
Someone says, I see you, I hear you, I'm with you, you matter, right?
Wow.
And so she pulls that through the whole thing. And I'm like, we don't say that enough to one another. I see you, I hear you, I'm with you, and you matter. And that's what all this, we're rightly so, that we are bringing up stuff that needs to be dealt with. And there's divisions, and there's anger, and there's rage. And we need it. It's again, if the country is a body, it's like we've had this cancer, and we're going through hard treatment, right? Chemo and radiation and surgery, and we're just an open wound, right? And and every time this comes up, somebody stitches it back up. Somebody just says, oh, and stitches it back up, right? Just and it's an oozing sore, right? So now it's coming out. We're going to get it, right? Let's get it. But we have to remember that is critically important to say to one another. And I think about, you're talking about, some people who are suffering now, and you see all this love for Chadwick Boseman, and does it make them feel like no one is seeing me? Maybe. But I think if we can I think that, again, this is the symbol, right? Chadwick Boseman becomes a symbol, and that the love that he gets, I can imagine that I'm getting. And like, literally, I thought, I'm like, if I died, I'm sure there would be people who would say beautiful things about me, right? And then I thought, I would like to say those beautiful things to people I know, and hopefully they'll say them to me while I'm alive, right? That was the next piece of it, right? And I thought, because you always say, did he know? Did Chadwick Boseman know? And it's like, I'm sure he knew to a degree, but here I thought, but it lets us say, it lets us put ourselves in the place of the person who is gone. It lets us put ourselves in the place of the wife, right? Of the new wife, right? Although they've been together a long time, of the family, of the friends. We get to play every role, and then we get to say, how will I play it out? How am I playing this out in my life? And so, that's I'm ahead.
That's the thing about, once you're gone, you don't get to have any other say. I like in thinking about some of the memorials, a national grief that we experienced this year. John Lewis. And one thing about John Lewis, he wrote the open letter that was read after he passed, and talking about his last days. And imagine, when you think about a lifespan, thinking to live a life where he got to live to a time where people were saying, yes, Black lives matter, and to be seen and to be heard. There was another one. Oh my God, I lost my thought. I was going to mention another one, but just even in that, on a larger scale, because we also had C.T. Vivian. I mean, we've just had so much, and we have people again still trying to hold on to it, with everybody experiencing this all at the same time. This is the problem, and again, I was about to say this is the first time. It's not the first time. And I think we gotta stop doing the first, the worst, the biggest, the this, and the other. But here it is, another moment in time where we are experiencing something at the same time, very much like 9/11. Even on 9/11, it still feels like it was yesterday. It was really, in essence of time, it was a long time ago. The kids that were born in it was the 2005. What year was it? We don't even know, because it feels like it was yesterday. And I want to say 2000. I don't even know what year it was. I really don't. I can't even get since because 9/11, we know 9/11, but that was a time. Oh my God, there's been so many things. Of course, some of the assassinations. Where have we experienced like true victory? I remember. Let's bring it around away from the morbid. I remember when it was announced, Atlanta got the Olympics. Everybody was downtown Atlanta. Everybody, those who could, took the day off to be there. When something like that, or getting the announcements of the World's Fair and all those different things, something collectively we witnessed together.
Think about Black Panther, and when the movie launched and families were in full costume, and and then the movie made $1 billion, right? It's like, and there was joy.
People chose that they don't matter.
Right.
The very people that it said they don't matter ended up with a $1 billion box office. It's like, you kind of matter. You kind of matter a lot.
And there was joy. And I went to see Black Panther the weekend it came out, and I think I went by myself because I didn't have anybody to go with. And because I was trying to remember, because we watched it, of course, everybody rewatched it. I hope you did, because there's so many messages, so meaningful. But I was like, I think I was in the theater by myself, but it was a full theater, and it was a collective experience.
The tribute after. Oh, I know. I want to talk about one of the guys. Also, they talked about the number of movies Chadwick did make, knowing that he was terminally ill.
Yeah.
There was an interview with one of the actors that was in Five Bloods with him,
Clark Peters.
You talk about heartbreaking. Yeah. He was asked.
Yes.
Oh, God, it was heartbreaking because he said that just casually, somebody had asked, how was it to work with Chadwick, and he said he's looking forward to it, but again, not. And you and I totally understand that coming out of caregiving, because people don't know. I think the main thing that I learned about taking care of somebody who was terminally ill is that people don't know and they don't understand. I talked about this even last night. There are people that I don't speak to this day because, hey, and Belinda's come on and watching. There are people that I won't speak to this day because I don't feel like they knew enough to honor what I was going through. But then I have to say that they didn't know.
Yeah.
They did not know. They just thought like, hey, you've changed. You're not as giving as you used to be. And I'm like, I don't have anything left to give. But that when he said, somebody asked him, he said his wife asked him, how was it to work with Chadwick, the scenes they had together. And he said, I think he kind of was, what he said, I like the word that he used.
He said I was less than altruistic.
Yeah, he said he was less than altruistic, but he said the way he described Chadwick, he was precious.
I think
he was kind of precious.
A bit precious.
Yes. He said, I thought he became a bit precious. People that were very hands-on. He had a physician and he had some therapy and different things like that. They thought he'd gone true Hollywood.
They gone diva, right? But
he gone diva.
His wife. Well, his girlfriend was there, who was in his wife. Said the thing that got me is he said, and his girlfriend was there and would hold his hand. And
that's
and then
difficult. And then
continue the story to what Clark Peters said. Then he's like, and then he says, but now that I know, and like I'm gonna cry like he did. He choked up. Can you imagine?
But now that he knows, he's got to live with regret. Because one of the things that people were saying is about the fact that Chadwick was trolled. But I'm not gonna fault those people who did that, because we live in a trolling society. There are so many entities, so many websites, so many of this, that, and the other that deliver that kind of news. And then two, we see actors go up and down as far as their weight, they change for roles. And I mean, all this time I'm sitting here waiting for news of what role this is for, because you could not look at him and not see that he immediately was changing. And I thought, man, that's a drastic look he's doing.
Yeah.
Naturally, you and I would have been both triggered because we took care of people who were terminally ill. But at the same, and it was like, whoa, that hits funny. But then you think, oh, he's an actor.
He's an actor.
It's got to be for a role. You wait to hear about the role, and you didn't hear about the role, and you hear this, and go back over that. People don't know.
but once you know, and you go back and look at him, you're like,
Yeah.
of course he has cancer. That's what that looks like, right?
That-
But like you say, your
we
mind
know
is able
that.
to say, oh,
Yeah.
he's just, he's doing a really
He's
good
an
job
actor.
getting ready for that role.
Getting ready for the role. He's getting ready
But
for a role.
I watched that Clark Peters interview like before
That
I went
was
to bed,
hard.
and I literally laid in the bed thinking about Chadwick Boseman in Vietnam with a dog, you know, with someone who was rubbing his back, someone who was rubbing his feet.
In
I
between
just think about the
scenes.
pain, you know, the pain. He was getting palliative care, right? That's what you call that when someone is dying and you're trying to make them comfortable. He was getting palliative care. He took a palliative care team with him, and that his girlfriend held his hand.
Well,
And I said,
was
that's
my thing.
And I'm like, I said, you hold the hand of the person that you know is dying, and you take every chance to hold their hand. And she was comforting him and telling him, you can do it. You know, so there was all this questions like, were people around him who knew he was sick telling him, you need to take care, you need to slow down? Not his girlfriend / wife. She was there. She said, I will hold your hand.
But when you think about things that were suppressed, you know, so many times we've been here before. When I think about Sammy Davis Jr., you know, when I think about others, you know, working through, you know, going back into Gregory Hines, who also in the same manner, you know, fighting through illnesses and trying to complete projects, you know, and if you see people, even again, close friends who just lost a close friend, and I think back of the work that they did over the last year, you know, not knowing if they knew, but man, the work that they put in, trying to build, you know, their what will be their legacy, and you know, we're probably gonna forever come together because of how this person was so adamant about. You need to know this person, and you need to know that person. And y'all need to work together. And y'all need to, always doing that. And I'm talking about my dearest friend Clark Garrison, and looking and how he was honored over the last week. And that wasn't even the memorial, because again, here's another memorial that has to be put on hold until a better time in the pandemic. But you now get what you want to do, people, and then we can say this to everybody. And I talked about this on my morning podcast, How to Get Out of Bed, is you want to come out on the other side better than you just want to have that. You want to come out on the other side, but you want to be on the right side. You want to be on the right side of history, because there will come a day you don't get to have any more say. One of the reasons we are discovering these women that are unladylike, because someone had to say on suppressing their stories no longer has to say. So now we have to learn about all these amazing women simply because somebody decided that their stories would not be told, that their stories were not. Can you imagine if Charlotta's story had inspired more women to own media? You know, my goal was to own a platform, and I'm like trying to say, hey, I want to do this. And there was only one other example here in Atlanta. I grew up, you know, with in the shadows of the Atlanta Daily World, which was, you know, the Black-owned newspaper here in Atlanta. And you've got them all over the city. I think, you know, there's probably one or two still majorly. I don't know what the publication statuses are, but somebody decided that we would not witness that. And we got a Facebook user says, when I looked at him from doing outreach work, family members, and staying in the nursing homes, I knew something was wrong. Yeah, a lot of people witnessed. You know, you couldn't do anything but look at him and know that there's something there. But again, you just said, wait, it must be for a role. There's no way this young man is that. Even when we watched Black Panther this weekend, the fight scenes. You know, I even looked because I was like,
you're looking.
I was like, wait,
yeah.
But even when the movie first came out, I was like, but he's supposed to be. I was just like, why is he not more fit than the Black Panther would be? I was comparing him to Michael B. Jordan, and I'm like, he wasn't as fit as he could be. And I don't know that, but because I had the question about if he was terminally ill, because you know, when you do work on film projects, you know, you got to do physicals and you got to, you know, be insured. And and all those different things.
I
So I
thought
wonder
about
about
the
that.
insurance. Yes,
Yeah,
I thought
you got
about the
you
insurance on
have
these
to think
projects. And so,
on the
Ryan
project.
Coogler said he didn't know. So,
Mhm.
anyway, which
I
is
mean, what
fine.
about the guy? If you remember Fast and the Furious, remember the guy in Fast and the
Yeah,
Furious that died
yeah,
in the car accident?
hmm
That
yeah,
that damaged the franchise.
right.
They have to be
So,
insured for
yeah,
that, and
so
now people are wondering who
how
was
that,
wrong. Yeah,
right,
the
how that
Joker
plays
guy.
out.
Remember the guy with the
Yeah,
guy that
Heath
played the Joker?
Ledger.
What was
Yeah,
his name?
yeah, Heath Ledger. Heath
Yeah,
Ledger.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was another one. Hmm.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
so
I know you
I
have. You said
I
you
gotta
gotta run
go.
out
So what
early.
I would, yeah, I've got about 10 minutes. I'd like to. Can we wrap with Brandy and Monica, because I
Hmm.
think this is really was a really big thing this week in leading women, right? And I will say, truth, I don't know if I was just too old for Brandy and Monica. I knew the song. I knew their song together, right? The Boy's
Hmm.
Mine. I knew that
Hmm.
song. You and I are
Hmm.
exact same age, right? I believe in
Hmm.
the 90s, I may have been into some alt rock and grunge. So I may not have been paying as
Okay.
close attention, because I was like, I
Okay.
didn't really, I mean, I knew Brandy as an actor. I knew some
Hmm.
of the songs. I knew a little bit about Monica. So it did not hit me, and everything doesn't have to hit me, right? But I knew to pay attention.
Well,
I knew to pay attention to it, right? So I followed it on Twitter and I watched pieces of it. And
yeah.
the explosion of activity around this, I was
Hmm.
like, well, well, well. So
Yeah.
give us
Yeah.
your take on
Well,
Brandy and Monica.
the take on Brandy and Monica, of course, these are two young women. They came kind of after the Mariah Carey and the Whitney and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. So they were always supposed to be like the next two.
The next, I
Of
know, they were
course,
like the next,
yeah.
right.
Me, in the fact that you and I both are from Atlanta, you know that
Mm-hmm.
Monica is representing
Right.
Atlanta,
It's
and
Atlanta. Mm-hmm.
Monica started in the music industry very young, and I lived in the community where a lot of these young people came out of, where Atlanta music it came out of a particular part of town in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
notably those produced by Dallas Austin, Jermaine Dupri, and
Mm-hmm.
so forth. It's neighborhood. So Monica, I've known of. I won't say I've known Monica.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say I know Monica, but I've known of Monica very long
Mm-hmm.
time. Of course, I've been blogging for 20 years, so naturally I've interviewed her a number of times and so forth, and knew her as a 12-year-old singer. Everybody was like, "Whoa, this young girl has this
Mm-hmm.
voice," And Jermaine, I don't know if it was Jermaine that she came up under, but all the women that came out of Atlanta, they tried to make them real grungy, like, and she just
Right.
had a very, very feminine side. So they had a popular song, and the songs actually had to do with television and soundtrack, but
Right.
they each had, they were just supposed to be the next,
Right.
except to with the fact that they went off doing their family thing, and there was a time when women, even people today still try to figure out like who is the legacy women. The women were shelved in the music industry, so people have been
Right.
waiting for these two to come back. Like, how do you have such a major hit, which is called "The Boy Is Mine"?
The
And
Boy's
there was
Mine. I knew
like
that
never
song. Yeah.
ever, never ever this major follow up. And so it's always felt like something that was supposed to happen that never happened. And so this is it. Not only that, during the Grammys, that Whitney died, right before Whitney died, the two of them Brandy and Monica were given an interview. Whitney burst into the interview.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was that moment of seeing Whitney not at her best, but
Mm-hmm.
having the fact of like giving these two young women credence, right?
Right.
Not
Like
only that,
passing the torch. Right.
she passed them a note, and people still want to know what was in that note. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, it was just epic. Of course, you've been following Versus, and
Oh, yeah.
Versus has just been the most amazing thing for us while we're in pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I still wonder if they had this planned before the pandemic, because it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely it's evolved.
Yes.
But that was one of the epics. I was actually surprised that the numbers weren't more. They did hit 1 million. They did surpass the million, but I was looking for it to do a
Well,
little bit more. People felt like they were holding back.
I haven't looked at the final numbers, but they said there was
Mm-hmm.
1 million on Instagram, but Versus now
Mm-hmm.
has its own app. There's the YouTube audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's speculation that there may have been at least another 1 million on the Versus app,
On the
right?
Versus app. Okay.
So the 1 million may actually be 2 million plus, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back and see. I'm sure there's reporting on that, but
Yeah.
that this is the biggest one yet, right? That the second
Mm-hmm.
biggest one was Jill Scott and Erica Badu, right? So let's look at where
With the
these
women
numbers are
leading.
coming from,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at, and I thought following the discourse around that around their interaction in that performance, if
Mm-hmm.
you want to know who's driving culture, Black women drive culture, because
And we know this. Yeah.
the degree to which there was engagement on this, and there was the ones that like I was team Brandy, I
Mm-hmm.
was team Monica.
Well, the
I was a
problem with
Brandy who
that.
became Monica. I was a Monica who became Brandy. But I just thought the attachment, the fan base of these
Mm-hmm.
women. Oh, a bug just flew in my face. That then just disappeared. I mean, like you say, they were
Well,
on
that's
a
the
trajectory,
problem.
and then
It's
it's like,
always after the fact.
yeah,
It's when it's Black women, it's always after the fact. It's nothing really up front. They didn't like really truly lay out the red carpet for Black. And this comes back to Charlotta,
yeah,
right?
right.
It's like we have for Black women, these are two young
Yes.
iconic women who have reached icon status without having to be 60, without having to be 80,
Mhm.
Icon status. And we don't get to witness again.
Yep.
We didn't get to like the red carpet. It was awesome. It was amazing. They were on a sound stage at Tyler
Mhm.
Perry Studios, but
Mhm.
still, you felt like something was being held back. They kept
Mhm.
taunting a tour. There wasn't like, okay, now go buy the tickets to the tour. It's always
Mhm.
something the loose
Mhm.
ends have to be tied after the fact. Where when we continue to talk about Black women being the culture, setting the trends. They didn't go in there with a 900. Right now, the deal, the big number is 900. Anybody can get $900 million.
Yep.
Okay, everybody's getting $900 million for any and everything except for Black women. Why did
That's
they
it.
walk? Why did they end this concert? Exit stage left, catches at the tour. Where's the tour? Why don't we already have tour dates? Now they've got to go and take this and try and leverage it after the fact. That's what we're saying. The problem for women is continuously over and over again. Nothing ahead of time, nothing up front. You didn't see them. It wasn't interrupted with, Brandy's commercials. You didn't see Monica's. They talked about having new songs. They talked about having producers. They're heavily produced. Somebody's writing all their songs. That was, there's a lot of takeaways from this. And yet, look how much conversation it garnered before, but yet and still, I'm not turning on my television today and seeing a bunch of Brandy commercials of her pitching all kind of products, Monica pitching, even in one of the slides, everybody said Brandy was being real slick. Monica was Fendi head to toe. Yep. Brandy made a comment, I hope Fendi cut a check.
Yep.
And again, it's embarrassing. That was embarrassing. That was the wrong thing. That's not how that's embarrassing. That was calling the girl out. Like, you came up in here and all that Fendi. I hope they, hope more than just gave you that. I hope you didn't have to buy that.
Right.
But that's again, why wasn't there wardrobe changes? They took a 2-minute break.
She's not
No,
wrong.
she's not.
Fendi should have paid for that. You're right. They should have had wardrobe changes and sponsored by, various design. I mean, because of the age of the women watching this, right? So you've got millennial women and Gen X women who these were style icons. These were icons to them in the day who would absolutely get back into it, right? Because one of the earliest things I said was, well, look, we still got Cali girl versus Atlanta girl, right?
Right.
And both of those are brands. There's everything around them has a brand that could tie into that. And so, and this is I thought
brands that
I
they
really
don't
think,
own.
I
Brands
really
that they don't
think
own,
that
they don't
somehow,
leverage,
right,
they didn't monetize,
right.
none of that.
And no, and so the thing that I go back to, and this is across the board for women and girls, the things that women and girls find important are devalued, right? And so it's like, so then you throw, you know, Black women on top of that, right? So here you have these two girls that again were icons of an age, right? But somehow that's not going to be significant to women now who are not girls, who are grown women with their own money, right? With money to spend on tours, music, clothes, programs, right? And I felt like with this, the same with Jill Scott and Erykah Badu, that somehow there was like, it was a surprise. Well, surprise, Brandy and Monica got a lot of attention. And I'm like, look,
after
even
the fact,
I know how big Brandy was, right? And Monica in Atlanta, right? But I was like, Moesha has just, you know, now you can watch Moesha on, was it Netflix? I'm like, Brandy is in the zeitgeist. I'm like, why in the world am I? It's why in the world? I mean, like people, like I'm already seeing people showing clips from Moesha. You had something from Thea. I was like, oh my God, I'd forgotten that show even existed.
Honey, Thea came out. Thea was like, she was on my Team Monica. Brandy was on my show first, and Brandy and her mama are rude and disrespectful. She got her stuff out.
Well, there was, I remember,
like that you said, you know, it was a surprise instead of the real forethought. But who witnessed it? That's the important part.
How do I know? Like, I mean, I follow Versus for sure. But how did I know Brandy and Monica were coming? Because for days and days and days, my timeline was filled with women saying, I can hardly wait. And they had the shoes. All the pictures of the shoes. I'm gonna wear the shoes I wore. Yeah.
But here's the question. Because industry, you know, industry will bank on that surprise. They will continue because when somebody else goes in and say that is achievable, because you gotta understand that Versus is out there probably every day going to people and saying that this is achievable, but nobody is believing it. You know, nobody's believing it, and that's the number one problem. But who's witnessing this, and who did it open doors for? What doors did this open? Twice now you've seen women take over Versus twice. And if they put Beyonce on there, they put Missy on there. If they go to even Fantasia, I think somebody's talking Fantasia and J Hud, and J Hud has the Aretha Franklin movie coming
that'd be
out.
amazing. Yeah.
Again, but again, will we have to deal with after fact? What can Black women and what can women get up front? Who's going to witness it? How do we prove who's going to witness it? Here we are today learning about Charlotta Bass, okay? And she ran for vice president, okay? And here you have Kamala, you had Keisha, you had all these women trying to prove something that somebody has already proved. I'm sorry, I know y'all did that a century ago, but you've got to prove it again.
Yeah.
You know, well, and if they don't leverage it right, the next two women will have to prove it all over again.
Absolutely. And I really feel like that even Brandy and Monica didn't know what their fan base was. I really felt like that what I saw, because I popped in and out, right, was that they both were nervous, right? And so some of the things that people were saying that was shady or whatever, I'm like, they were nervous. And I'm like, they were nervous because
there's still no pattern for it. There's still no pattern.
I'm like, but I said, I think that there had to be a fear for them that nobody would watch. And it turns out that they were the most watched.
Well, no, I don't think a fear of what watching. I think there was a lot of handling, and mind you, as a blogger, I've been around the handlers.
Yeah,
I think it was a lot of handling, like, okay, don't sing too much, don't say this, don't. It seemed to me because I one thing, like I said, I know Monica. I've seen Monica give 200% at an appearance. Okay.
Yes.
She's just gonna bring it. And I felt like there was a lot of, okay, hold this back. Don't do this. Don't do that. I thought they would just handle a lot, as opposed to just really going in and enjoying that moment.
Just enjoying it.
Just enjoying the moment and creating and raising the bar. If the two of them had actually sung those songs,
yes,
you'd have a sellout tour. You would have sold out at whatever tour. But I think there was a little bit of missed moment in that they didn't perform as much as they could have.
And did you see the little clip afterward, right? Which is after, and they're off to the side. Mm-hmm. And Monica, then their songs, she's just getting into whatever was playing, and I'm like, they didn't let her do that. And Brandy talked about media training and media and so forth, and so I'm like, they told Monica keep it down, when really everybody's like, we want to see that. And again, the authenticity of performers but in this moment, right. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was an interesting window into their experiences as young women, that they were being put into boxes, right? And so Brandy was put in such a box that she had to secretly hide that she had a baby, right? So I mean, this, it's like, you got to be in this box. You got to do like this.
She was still doing too much of that during this night, and I think that was the take. It's like, but she's show business, you know what I'm saying?
She is. I mean,
it's
acting
too much.
And,
it's show business.
Yeah. And so they say, I don't know what Monica was told, but she was told something too. Instead of saying, just go and be yourselves, because
Monica is a down to earth hood girl.
Yeah, well, that was the thing that people said, right? And it's like
she's the kind of person, no matter what the environment is, she's going to fit in, because she's good. Mm-hmm. She's kind-hearted, but she has a streak, only because we're from the South and you need a streak. All right. I know you got to get out of here.
Yeah,
guys.
I do. I got to get out of here a little early. So
I'm going to do one shameless plug.
Please.
And there is, and you guys, let me tell you, support this show. You support the soap, you support the show. And got a new two new additions to the soap collection. So we are brought to you and presented to you by DryerBuzz handmade body soaps. And we've got our new unscented here. This one is an apple apricot. And this one here is called Perfection by special request. It's a Perfection. And then we've got our new mocha bar that's in. These two will be coming out in the fall, October. It smells like the holidays up in here, because this is your first sign of pumpkin. So that has a little bit of pumpkin in that. And then, of course, our most popular bar here is our Sea Breeze. That is in so many households right now. I just made a new batch of that's going out as well. So on Tuesdays, we have our 2 for $12. But you can come back if you missed that sale. You can catch our $5 Fridays. Yay. Make sure you definitely stock up on $5 Fridays. Angela and I will come to you next Wednesday. Don't look for us on Sundays. I know you guys were asking me about Sundays. We have given Sundays back over to our families, and we are in on Wednesdays at 1:30 once a month. And not today, because we hadn't even discussed it. We talked about.
No, I realized that. I literally, I was like, oh no. So it's gonna be next week.
We want to do at least one primetime show a month. So just kind of, just come to you guys in the evening time. So we'll plan that out. Like I said, lots going on. Keep in mind that we are going through, mourning. We need a National Day of Mourning, because there's so much going on. Think about your neighbors, think about your families, think about your friends, as much as you think about celebrities. But I know you can't get away from the celebrity news. But think about the fact of, what have you witnessed? When was the last time so-and-so called, dropped a message, posted online? I saw a friend posted online saying they've been gone like a year, and I'm like, whoa, what? And people are going through all kinds of things. This was live in a couple places. If we didn't catch your comments, we'll go and check out those comments, and we'll catch you guys back next week. Angela, any words of wisdom for our women before we get out of here?
I'm just going to say, we see you, we hear you, we're with you, and you matter to us. So
there you go.
take that message wherever you go. I think that that's what we can do as leading women.
All right, guys. Until next week, keep leading.